Ruchem Avoim B'Shem Hashem. B'Shem Yigin Shur Termos Sposim. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's drasha and presentation from Rabbi Shaul Shimon Deutsch, Shlita. I'd like to give a shakayach to Rabbi Klein for sponsoring tonight's Shaul Ilinish Mas Imoy, Yish Edel Basar Bavom Ever Allah Shalom Yotzei tonight, Alva Shvedish Elul, Tenish Mosa Tzur Tzara Chaim. I'd like to give a shakayach to Mrs. Sarah Goldstein for sponsoring tonight's Shaul Ilinish Mas Reb Ruven Ber Moshe Allah Shalom Tenish Mosa Tzur Tzara Chaim. I have the great schus of sponsoring a shir or to help support Irgun Shir Torah in our worldwide Habatas Torah throughout the year. In light of our upcoming annual dinner this Monday, August 17th, I'd like to invite everyone. Due to space limitations, dinners for men only, but everyone can be mishtataf by calling 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Tonight, to have with us once again Rabbi Shaul Shimon Deutsch, Shlita, founder of Living Torah Museum, to speak on most recent discoveries of ancient Jewish life. It's my cover to corner of my Deutsch Shlita for tonight's drasha.
We are living in truly historic times. Imagine if the Rambam could come here today and see the discoveries that have been made in the last 40 years. Imagine the Kafta V'Ferach would see that a fight that the Rambam and Kafta V'Ferach had the Rambam passed away in the beginning of the 1200s. Kafta V'Ferach was born in 1280. So let's round it off and say the machlokes of the Kafta V'Ferach starts in the 1300s and the Rambam about our calendar. And I'm going to explain that machlokes in just a second. So the machlokes starts 1300s, 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, 2000s. We're talking about a machlokes that's going on for 700 years. We're now at 2026, Lemisparim, a machlokes that they were fighting about of pshat in the Gemara in Tainus. The Gemara in Tainus says that the year of the Chorban of the Beis Hamikdash Harishon and the year of the Chorban of the Beis Hamikdash Hasheni was the year of the first year in the cycle of Shemitah. The Kafta V'Ferach learns pshat in this Gemara in Tainus that the year of the Chorban was the year of the first year of the cycle of Shemitah. Kipshutai. The Rambam says no. The year of the Chorban of Bayesheni was Shemitah. The Rosh Hashanah after the Chorban was the first year of the cycle of Shemitah. That this machlokes is going to affect what year is Shemitah? Is it the year of the Kafta V'Ferach, or is it the year of the Rambam? How do you count the cycle of Shemitah? During the Yom Kippur War, when the Israeli army surrounded the Third Army of Egypt, during a few-week period, they went over the Jordanian border. And the first city in Jordan, if you go over the King Hussein Bridge, off to your left, is the city of Tzohar, the city of Zara. Zohar. It has two names today by the Arabs, Zohar or Zara. Could you hand me my book on Bereshis? And they go into the city of Zohar, the Israeli army, and they see that the Arabs took Jewish tombstones, matzevos, from the Jewish cemetery, like they did now in Russia a few years ago. And what did they do with these tombstones? They made paving stones in their marketplace. The Israeli soldiers, whether they were secular or religious, could not stand to see Arabs walking on Jewish tombstones. and they took 27 of these stones back to Eretz Yisrael. I got a call years ago from the Israeli authorities saying, we want to spread these stones amongst all the Jewish museums around the world so if a bomb or something happens, they don't get lost. Would you take 2 of these stones? I said, yes. I spoke it over with Rab Belsky. Spoke it over with David Cohen, Rab Feivel Cohen, Rab David Feinstein. The halacha is that when a matzeva is on a kaver, when the Evan is on a goylel, it has a din of tumah. But if the Evan is not on a goylel, it's a din of a regular stone. Now, there's no Isser Hana because we're not gaining anything in the regular way of Isser Hana. We're just learning information from these stones. And these 27 stones gives us a clear archaeological determination on our cycle of Shemitah. Because on every single stone, and this is in my book on Bereshis, the first matzeva here says the name of the person who passed away, the day of the week, day of the month, she was 70 years old, and it tells us how many years is it since the Chorban of the second Beis Hamikdash, and it tells us what year is it in the cycle of Shemitah. And it's exactly the opinion of the Kafta V'Ferach, the calendar which we follow today. All 27. I have 2. And if you're going to be up in the Catskills for this Friday, I am going to be giving a shir in the Catskills where I have both of these tombstones. And here you can see how the Yidden in Sohar, 1,600 years ago, were following the calendar that we have today. Who are these people? Who are these Jews of Tzayhar? Let me tell you a little about the history of Tzayhar. Hashem wanted to destroy Stoim, Amora, Adma, Tzvayim, and Tzayhar. Lot begged Hashem, don't destroy Tzayhar. And Rashi says they didn't do as many Averis as Stoim v'Amora. It wasn't Memales Kreisai. It didn't reach the top boiling point. And Hashem said Tzayhar remains. When Moshe Rabbeinu stood on top of the mountain to look at the entire Gvul of Eretz Yisrael, he delineates and says the Gvul of Eretz Yisrael is Ad Tzayhar. Chazal tell us about Shvius. Shemitah, you're allowed to walk into any field on Shemitah and eat from the fruits of the field. When is Shemitah over that you can no longer go into anybody's field? At Shetichla, in the last Te'ena of Eretz Yisrael, Ha'achron Shebetzoyer. When the last Te'ena of Tzoyer ripens, you are no longer allowed just to stroll into people's fields. Tzayhar. Till, yeah. The Mishnah in Yevamis tells us, and the Gemara on Tezvav Amud Beis. I'm sorry, the Gemara is in Yevamis Kuf Chav Beis Amud Aleph. Mentions also Tzayar. One of the Leviim were going with a Chabura of the Leviim and fell ill in Tzayar. And there was a lady there taking care of him. The Leviim left him, and they went to collect money. They came back, and they asked, where is this and this, our friend, this and this person? He passed away. I buried him. Here's his stick. Here is his wallet. His arnuk. Here is his things. And the Gemara says that the people of Tzayhar were considered to be Nemanim, and his wife was able to remarry based on the edus of the people of Tzayhar. So they weren't stam people in the Weltarein, as you say. They were people, and this lady of Tzar who took care of him, who buried him, was considered Nemanim. So when they tell us the year, the date of the person who passed away, their age, the day of the week, day of the month, the day of the year of the cycle of Shemitah, that they were counting. Imagine the Kafta V'Farach and the Rambam walk through that door right now. Or they came to my museum in the Catskills and they were able to look. Here is what the Jews of Tzayar were counting. The cycle of Shemitah. So we have confirmation today in our times based on ancient Jewish communities that the calendar and the cycle of Shemitah that we follow today is exactly as Jews 1,600 years ago were doing. And on the bottom line of this matzeva, you can buy it, it's in my book on Bereshis. My books in all the stores are $55 each. Tonight here in the museum gift shop, you can buy it for $35 each. We give you a $20 discount. I'm going to show you another Gemara. If you learn Gittin, the Gemara in Gittin tells us you're not allowed to write a get counting to the years of the Beis Hamikdash or to the years of the Churban. Because the Yidden used to count how many years is it since Churban Bayesheni. On the bottom line of this matzeva, which you can see in person in my museum in the Catskills, the Churban Beis Migdash Hashem. They are counting exactly what the Gemara in Gittin says, that people were doing this process of counting a cycle of how many years it is since the Churban of the Beis Hamikdash. So this is one matzeva. This is the second matzeva. This was recently published by a professor of Yeshiva University, Dr. Stephen Fine, just published the second matzeva as well. The whole nusach of the matzeva. I'd like to turn your attention to a discovery that happened 6 weeks ago. And this discovery, a shiver went through my spine when the scuba divers called me and told me what they found. I usually only buy from shipwreck items, ancient items. But this was an exception. I could not say no. During World War II, the United States Army, when they invaded Germany, captured German documents. They brought it all back to Alexandria, Virginia. And they photographed all of the captured documents from the Germans. And you know what they found? Hitler's plan, Hitler's plan was to send Rommel, the desert fox, to capture Egypt, to capture Eretz Yisrael, Jordan, Syria. And the Nazis had already drawn up plans where in Eretz Yisrael they were going to put concentration camps. The Yidden of Eretz Yisrael were davening, and Hashem stopped the desert fox Rommel in his tracks. Sandstorms destroyed his jeeps. Some of the military that were coming soldiers in the Mediterranean Sea, some of their storms that came and hit their boats, sunk their boats. A German shipwreck was found from Rommel's army. And I bought a helmet. We just finished cleaning it. It was completely covered with coral. I left traces of coral on this helmet to serve as a reminder for people of the tremendous nest that Hashem made. That the Jews of Syria, the Jews of Eretz Yisrael, Jordan, Chas v'sholem could have had a Holocaust like the Jews of Europe. And Hashem saved us. That's why I bought this German Rommel army helmet from a German soldier. I'd like to show you something else that's very, very significant for those of you who learned Daf Yomi. In Daf Yomi in Chulin, we learned about many, many, many different coins. I once spoke about this ba'arichos, but because Daf Yomi is now last few weeks learning about shiurim that has to do with coins, Rabbi Yashiv asked me himself, can I buy from you all the coins mentioned in the Gemara? So I made Rabbi Yashiv a set of all 7 coins of Gemara Kedushin Daf Yud Beis that the Gemara talks about. In a dinar there are 6 ma, 12 pundyonim, 24 isra talkis, 48 musmas, and 96 kuntrik, and 192 prutas. Could you give me my book on Vayikra? So Rabbi Yashiv, I wanted to give him a present. He really wanted all the coins. So he said to me, how much is it? I don't want to tell him the real price. It should be in the thousands. 7 coins from 2,000 years ago. He says, how much is it? I says, it's a present. I don't take presents. Rabbi Yashiv wanted to pay for it. Now we're stuck. How much are you going to charge Rabbi Yashiv? I couldn't tell him it's $100. He knew it wasn't $100. So he says to me, Zog me wifel se is. Tell me how much it is. I told Rabbi Yashiv, $725. This is one of the most unique pictures of Rabbi Yashiv you'll ever see. That's me and Rabbi Yashiv, upstairs in his house. I put down all 7 coins, and we have a set right here. And I showed him the coins, and he says, how much is it? I told him $725. He gets out of his chair. If you look at the bookcase behind Rabbi Yashiv, this is in my book on Vayikra. Rabbi Yashiv had one shelf of books that there were no books on it. He kept letters, bills, envelopes, because Rabbi Yashiv did not mix svarim with stam papers. He was very makbid on that. So Rabbi Yashiv gets out of his chair. He walks over to the shelf. Where my hat was that shelf. And Rabbi Yashiv takes out 2 envelopes and starts counting to me $1 bills from 1957. The old American silver certificates. And when I realized that he's giving me antique dollars, I told Rabbi Yashiv, 300 is schon genug. 300 is enough. Was heißt? What do you mean? Ich doch gesagt, you said 725. 725. I said, Rabbi Yashiv, those are antiques. These are antiques. And Rabbi Yashiv looks at me and says, Ba'mira das $1. To me, this is $1. So I'm a very chutzpahdik person, and I was very close with him, so I could joke around with him. So I said to Rabbi Yashiv, I said, Von wann hat azelcha alta amerikanische Dollar? Where do you have these American dollars? He smiles and he says to me, when he gearbeitet for the Rabbanut, when he worked for the Rabbanut, people used to come, business people, used to come to Eretz Yisrael. They wanted to do deals. So they used to translate the deal contracts from English to Ivrit. And then they wanted it to be al pi halacha. So Rabbi Yashiv's job was to translate from Hebrew into making it a shtar al pi halacha. Then they wanted to give him tips. Ich keinmal nicht gewollt nutzen de Geld. I never wanted to use this money. Wenn du's gekommen mit der allem Matbeis, when you came with the coins, jetzt weiß ich, für was ich das gehalten. Now I know why I kept them. And Rabbi Yashiv counts out for me 725 singles. Today, if you want to buy one of Rabbi Yashiv's dollars, we sell them for $100, and it's the best bar mitzvah present you could give a kid who's named after Rabbi Yashiv. You're going to bar mitzvah, you take this dollar, you put it in a frame with a picture of Rabbi Yashiv. This bar mitzvah boy who's named after Rabbi Yashiv will appreciate this dollar more than the 15 kaises and the 25 challah that he's going to get for his bar mitzvah. B'kitzur, Rabbi Yashiv takes the coins, and I want to tell you what an honor of Rabbi Yashiv was. This is me, that's Rabbi Yashiv, and that's his grandson Yisrael. And Rabbi Yashiv turns to his grandson, and he says to him, Gei koif mecha kasefet. Go buy me a safe for die matbeis, for these coins. For 100 years, for 100 years, hab ich gewohnt in a Stub an a kasefet. I lived in a house with no safe. Was hab ich schon da, was etwas wert Geld? What do I have in my house that's even worth any money? And I'm standing here laughing. I said, Rabbi Yashiv is such an honor. If he doesn't realize, people would pay $30,000 to have a Tehillim Rabbi Yashiv said Tehillim from. And he just looks at me and says, Was hab ich schon da, was etwas wert Geld? What I have here that's even worth any money? Yisrael leaves. I'm standing with Rabbi Yashiv. And he says to me, Rabbi Deutsch, willst du mich gekannt geben 20 Minuten? Could you spare 20 minutes? If Rabbi Yashiv asks you for 20 minutes, you give him 20 minutes? I said, Zicher. He takes off his glasses. He puts it down on the table. And he makes a kinyan on every box that he just bought for me. And after he makes a kinyan, he starts staring at every single coin. And after 20 minutes, he puts his glasses back on, and he says to me, Rabbi Deutsch, I just figured out 27 halachas in Shas. And because now in Daf Yomi, we just learned this. What does the Gemara say? A behema, a cow, has a hole in its windpipe, in its koneh. Is he a treif or not? If the hole is the size of a dinar, the animal is kosher and could live a year. If it's the size of an isser ha'italki, the animal will die within a year, and he's a treifa. You need to see these coins to understand what the Gemara is talking about. I made Rabbi Yashiv his set, and I thought I'm done. I get a call. And I used to go into Reb Chaim. I get a call that Reb Chaim wants to see me. I go into Reb Chaim. And Reb Chaim had a very, very funny sense of humor. When I used to sit with him, he was mamish besimcha. I'm going to show you a picture. You say in America, a picture's worth 1,000 words. That's me and Reb Chaim. When my beard was completely red. Look at Reb Chaim's face. You ever saw Reb Chaim Kanievsky smile like this? I walk into him and he says, Ich gehört, I heard, mein Schweret bakumen von euch, that my father-in-law got from you a set from matbeis, a set of coins. I said, yes. And he says to me, Lama nigara. What about me? I'm not chopped liver. He didn't say chopped liver, but that's what the expression is. Can I also get a set from you? I said, Zicher, wie viel hat mein Schwer dir gezahlt? How much did my father-in-law pay you? He gave me 20s and a 5. I still have them. Rabbi Moshe Shapiro finds out about it. Oh, Rabbi Deutsch, yeah? Can I choichet bakumen aset? Sure. Rab David Feinstein, Rab Feivel Cohen, Rab David Cohen, Rab Belsky. And then Rab Belsky said, make them available for everybody. So tonight, if you are a serious Daf Yomi learner, you could come to your shir in Daf Yomi with a set of coins. It will cost you $725. And in my Svarim, I've written 5 Svarim on Chumash, 2 on Tanakh. I give you Mara Mekaimis for many of the halachas Rabbi Yashiv learned out from the coins. For example, I wrote a lot of things. One of the things I did is Art School Mishnayos on Kalim. I helped the Art School give out Kalim. There's a Mishnah in Kalim that says that the drill bit that they used to fix the walls of the Beis Hamikdash, how thick was the bit? Kiroicha pundyon, the diameter of the coin called the pundyon. So you need to see these coins to fully understand and appreciate what Chazal were talking. If a pipe breaks in your house, you call a plumbing supply store. You have a pipe the size of a nickel, a dime, a penny, a quarter. Everyone knows what you're talking about. When Chazal were giving us over shiurim, they were using coins to show us shiurim. But then the rabbis made me crazy. Rabbi Deutsch, yeah, I'm a rabbi who teaches Vayikra. I teach Bamidbar. I teach Shemais. How do I explain to a kid in my class how much is an Isaron? How much is the shear of an Omer? How much is the shear of a hin? All these different measurements. How much flour did I have to bring for a carbon mincha? So after 3 years of begging me, I just created 6 weeks ago a new item, a shiurim bucket. There is a sefer called Midas U'Shiyurei HaTorah from Chaim Benish. This is an encyclopedia of shiurim. It's out of print. There's no more left. I went to Chaim Benish's house in Bnei Brak and bought the last 50 copies. He needs a refuah shalema. He's very sick right now. And every shear, he gives it to you in liters and in quarts. So if you are a rabbi teaching about the Omer, you go to the grocery store, you buy barley, you fill up the barley, Chazonish shiurim, Reb Chaim Nosh shiurim. If you're in Europe, liters, you could fill up any shear that you are learning today. If you are a rebbe or a teacher or you are a maggid shear, and you don't want to just repeat words, you want to be'emes understand it, you can have a shiurim bucket, my newest thing that I made, and show the shiurim according to every single shear, according to Chazonish, according to Reb Chaim Noach. Oh, I have one here. I also made years ago, they sold out. I made it again a third time. Now it's almost sold out for the third time. I made a shiurim tape measure. Cost $20. This tape measure, you want to measure your sukkah? Anything you want to measure. Could you open one up for me? Anything you want to measure, you can see according to the Chazonish and according to Reb Chaim Noach. You want to see how much is an amma? You want to see how much is... Yeah, break it. It's okay. How much is an amma? How much is a masayim v'chetzi arka v'amma v'chetzi rachba? You're learning with your children. You're learning with your grandchildren. They should be able to visualize how big was the arin, how big was the menorah. Chazonish shiurim on top, Reb Chaim Noach shiurim on the bottom, inches and feet in the middle. So if you want to learn shiurim, the tape measure, the bucket, and the coins, you are covered with every shear in the Torah, in Chazal, and in the Gaonim too. You could see the shiurim, how much they were. I want to continue and show you something else that's fascinating. There are people today who are trying to save Messiahs. Birds need Messiah. Rabbi Feinstein writes that just having a sefer with a thing that this shoichet shechted, this bird, is not considered a Messiah. It has to be passed down from father to son, father to son. I want to show you a very unique sefer. These sefer svarim go for thousands of dollars on auctions. The sefer is called the Zivchei Kohen. The Zivchei Kohen was a shoichet in Italy. And the Zivchei Kohen writes 30 birds that he had a Messiah for that were kosher. And he writes in Italian the names of all 30 birds, but he did something phenomenal. He made foldouts of all 30 birds that he had a Messiah that were kosher. We only have 11 left that still have Messiahs on it. Because we don't have shoichtim anymore who shecht those birds. That's the first fold out. This is the second fold out. The copy you are looking at is the only one in the world that has all 5 fold-outs of the Zivchei Kohen. Even the Israel National Library in Jerusalem does not have all 5 fold-outs. I have it right here. And I spent a lot of money to buy this sefer. But then I found even a better one. Somebody in the 4th printing of this sefer, I don't know how he did it, made color drawings of the birds, which help us even more, besides the names, to identify which birds the Zivchei Kohen in Italy was shechting. $200 years ago. I have in my birds room of the museum all 30 birds, taxidermy preserved of the Zivchei Kohen. So we know which birds the Yidden were shechting, but Messiah still needs it to be passed from father to son. So here are the Italian Jews. The Zivchei Kohen, who's a shoichet in Italy, shechting these birds, and still Rabbi Moshe Feinstein writes about certain pheasants called the ringneck pheasant. They asked him if you could shecht it, and he said, we don't have anybody today who's 100% sure that the German Jews were shechting this bird. I spoke to Rav Kalbach, he writes in Nigros Moshe. And Rav Kalbach was not sure in Germany which pheasant they were shechting, therefore do not give a hechsher on those pheasants today. Even though they're in the Zivchei Kohen. Rav Moshe said, and he writes this in Nigros Moshe, only a bird that is passed father to son, father to son. So we have people who go around to far-away Jewish communities checking Messiahs, which birds the sheikhim still remember or they still shecht. And some of us shecht every year 1 or 2 of a bird to keep the Messiahs. Because Messiahs has to be passed. Because there was a story of Tarnegoyle da Agma and Tarnegalusa da Agma. 2 birds, one was a dairis, and in Chulin we just learned in Daf Yomi. A dairis means that he takes his fingers, puts it down, and he rips the meat. One of the Simon of Drisa. So the Maharam Rutenberg wrote Kaper Keli in German. Kaper Keli is a dairis. On my videos you can see how they are dairis. If you go online, you can go and watch my things. You can stream on my website and watch kosher birds of the Torah and 2 volumes on non-kosher birds, and I show you how a kapakeli is a dairis. If you're learning chulin, you could watch my birds DVDs on kosher birds, non-kosher birds, and actually see them doing this. And I show you all the simanim in chulin. There's another bird the Maharam Rutenberg wrote called the black grouse. That's a kosher bird. When they're young, they're easy to confuse. And Rashi says, don't eat any bird that doesn't have a Messiah. But Rashi only wrote it as a suggestion. He didn't paskin. Between Rashi and the Beis Yosef was a man named Columbus, who came to the New World. This past year, Columbus's tomb was exhumed, and they took out DNA from Columbus's tomb, and they did test. He was a Sephardic Jew. It was always a rumor that he was a Sephardic Jew, but we now know which Sephardic family Columbus came from. But all the years we knew that Columbus's navigator was a Yid, who was a Talmud Chacham too. When he came to the New World, he saw this bird called the turkey. And there is no equivalent in Europe, and Rabelsky said that what happened was that he had sources for this, that this navigator thought that the turkey is something that they don't have and he's never seen, that this must be what it says, that by the Seudah of Shlomo HaMelech they brought birds from faraway lands, and this must be the Tuki. So the navigator started saying, Tuki, Tuki, and that's where the name Turkey came from. Columbus's navigator. They took it back to Europe. They started shachting turkeys because they checked all the simanin that we learned now in Daf Yomi and Chulin, and it had Korkeva Niklov and the Zefek and all the things that it has. And people started breeding these turkeys. That by the time the Beis Yosef published the Shulchan Aruch in 1540, the Rav of Klal Yisrael were eating these birds. And when the Beis Yosef says, don't eat a bird without a Messiah, 3/4 of Klal Yisrael were eating the turkey already. So the Avnei Nezer writes in his Chuvas, if Rav of Klal Yisrael eat a bird, you're not allowed to aser that bird. Even the Yidden in Broyers and upper Manhattan, who don't eat turkey, are not allowed to tell a Yid, don't eat turkey, because Rav of Klal Yisrael is eating it. So many times the history of these Jewish communities are very much affected by what goes on. Because a Messiah has to be passed father to son. Now, Rav Moshe writes in Nigros Moshe that if a kehila, 2 or 3 kehilas in a certain place have a Messiah for a bird, and they're not stam people, they are people that are considered anoshim chashuvim, Rav Moshe says, within those kehilas, then you could be samech on their Messiah, as long as there's no one who argues with that Messiah. And that's what happened with grasshoppers. A very unique sefer you won't find in your local Sfarim store, but you can buy it tonight for $50. This sefer was published, Ha'arba b'Mesoros Yisrael. Which species of grasshoppers are kosher? This is a picture of a woman in Tafshin Samach Beis in Akron preparing kosher grasshoppers. The Moroccan Jews and the Jews of Yemen that lived in the villages still have a Messiah which grasshoppers to eat. So are you allowed to eat grasshoppers today? So Rav Moshe writes as follows, that if there's a negative to the Messiah, then don't be relying on it. There were Rabbanim in Morocco who were trying to get the Jews to stop eating grasshoppers because there was also a scandal of confusion. So therefore, today, our Erlich Yid should not eat grasshoppers. But I have visitors to the museum all the time that eat grasshoppers. They make shahakal. I ask them, what does it taste like? Roasted peanuts. And the Gemara says a child is not allowed to play with a non-kosher grasshopper. Maybe he's going to forget and eat him. So here tonight, if you want to have last week's Parsha, Chagav, Arba, Solam, you can see all the species. It's also in my book on Vayikra. You can see all the species of kosher grasshoppers. And Mitzad Halimut, you can actually know Ha'arba b'Mesoros Yisrael with all the Mar Mekoimis. One of the greatest Dayanim in London, Dayan Kukovitsky, wrote a sefer, and I went to his son's house. I sent a shliach in London to buy the last copies Targum Balaz. Targum Balaz Dayan Kukovitsky wrote all the French words that Rashi writes in Chumash, in Nevi'im, in Gemara. Every French word, what it means in English. He was an expert, Dayan Kukovitsky, in Old French. And this is, again, community in London. A guy, a Rav who dedicated his life to the people should know Maisa Oirik. They should know the words of Rashi. When you learn a word in Rashi, Balaz, I got the last copies of his Sefer. If you want it here tonight, it's a Sefer you'll never in your life have a chance to own again, because it's not going to be reprinted anytime soon, as far as what his son told me, told through a shliach. So people are busy, they get busy, you know, they say, oh yeah, they're going to do it. It never happens. This is what happens. So it's Azal Min Hashuk, but I brought for you tonight, you know, Ein Beis Medrash B'loi Chiddush. People want to see something that they didn't see before. This is something that you're going to start now. Simchas Torah, learning Chumash and Rashi. For $50, you can actually learn and understand this. Now, Rabbanim sometimes come to me and say, Rabbi Deutsch, is a new controversy. But sometimes the new controversies already happened 100 years ago. A number of years ago, there was a big controversy called Metzitza B'Peh, Metzitza B'Keli. And the same fight happened 100 years ago. 2 Svarim were published 100 years ago, and in my extensive library I had both Svarim. I get a call for Reb Cheskel Roth. Rabbi Deutsch, Efshe weißt du, wo ich kann sehen, the Sefer Meishiv Nefesh and Dam Bris. And Yitzhak Chachma didn't have it at that time. I don't know. I don't check Yitzhak Chachma often. I don't think they even have it today, both of these Svarim. And this is 2 Svarim that were published 100 years ago, and I made copies. And for $100, you could have the whole controversy of Metzitza B'Peh, Metzitza B'Keli that was going on, and what every Gadol B'Yisrael wrote 100 years ago, from Rabbi Shmuel Salant to all the Gedolim on the subject. And you're going to be shocked about how many of the Gedolim said you could use Metzitza B'Keli. It's all in these books. So if you want to have both of them, it's a very unique thing to see. It's what the Gedolim said 100 years ago on this controversy. Let me show you something that's going to wake you all up. If you're about to fall asleep, this is the time to wake up, because you all learned Elam Mitzias. And I asked my Rebbe this question. Kikar Shal Nachtem doesn't have a siman. Kikar Shal Balabayas has a siman. Rebbe, didn't have packaging 2,000 years ago. No plastic bags, no paper bags. How did they know if it was a Kikar Shal Nachtem, if it was a Kikar Shal Balabayas? And my Rebbe told me, every mother who bakes challah could tell which challah she baked. Oh yeah? Let's find out if it's true. This was a Thursday afternoon. I was dismissed from yeshiva on Friday at 12 o'clock. I went home. I went to the garage, pulled out 2 folding tables from our sukkah supplies. I lined them up in front of my house. I took a little pad of paper, one of those spiral pads. I knocked on every mother of my block. Excuse me, Mrs., did you bake challah for Shabbos? Yes. Can I borrow one of your challahs? What do you need with my challahs? I'm doing an experiment. On each challah I wrote Weinberg, Horowitz, Goldstein, every name. And I didn't go to one side of the block. I went to both sides of the block. I had 60 challahs on 2 tables. I mixed them all up. And then I called every single mother on my block. Show me which challah you bake. Not one of them got it right. Sunday morning, I come back. If you're a Rebbe and I was in your class, you would have a white beard by the end of the year. Sunday morning, I come to yeshiva. Rebbe, do you know what I did on Friday afternoon? Now one mother figured out which challah it was. What are you telling me? Kikar Shal Nachtem doesn't have a siman. Kikar Shal Balabayas has a siman. So my Rebbe told me, when du wirst werden älter, wirst du verstehen. When you get older, you're going to find out. He was right. Houses 2,000 years ago in Jewish communities didn't have every house an oven. If you're a landlord in New York City, you have to give your tenant a refrigerator, a sink, certain standard things. They used to have one oven that 10 women would bake in. Va'afu eser nashim b'sanur echad. We say it in the Teichacha. Guess what? Everyone had a bread stamp. This is in my new book on Devarim. This guy's name is Aksamini, is the shoemaker. He made his bread stamp in the shape of a shoe. So if you would make a pita, he would stamp his bread, put it in the oven. There was no confusion whose bread it was. Kikar Shobalabayas has a simon. If your name is Korn's Bakery or Rabbi Yehuda was a Nachtaim. Every baker had his own design. So Rabbi Yehuda's bakery had one design. Korn's bakery had a different design. Give me another bakery here in Flatbush. Kaf's. So Kaf's bakery had a different design. 600 pitas made that day. You know which bakery made it, but you don't know who bought it. So Kika Shobalabayas has a simon. Kika Shonachtim doesn't have a simon. I want to show you a toy from 200 years ago. I love this toy. And since we're talking about Jewish communities, this was found in Yerushalayim. They were doing construction a number of years ago. And as they took away a wall, they found a bookcase with Sfarim, and they found this toy. This is the only known one that has survived. It was based on magnets. And I love to him when I start a shir usually. It's 200 years old. You could see how this Yid in Yerushalayim would have been dressed. And he actually shakes back and forth. He has a stender. He shakes back and forth. So for all of you who stand and learn by a stender, Ein Beis Madish B'loi Chiddush. This guy has been doing it for 200 years. He's steiging away. I love this toy. It doesn't fit in with Kalim from 2,000 years ago with this and that. But sometimes I'm going to buy a German helmet. Sometimes I'm going to buy a clothing or even a toy showing how a Yid of Yerushalayim dressed 200 years ago. All that you can see it. So right, we're going to start Ma'ariv in a few minutes. And what you're going to say in Shema tonight, V'hoyu l'toitafis beinenecha. I'd like you to see what a toitafis is. Now, the Unkala says toitafis is tefillin. Everyone learns tefillin. But what does toitafis mean? It's a kind of piece of jewelry. If you learn B'meha Isha Yoitza, what is a woman allowed to wear on Shabbos? A question about the toitafis. The Moroccan Jews and the Jews of Yemen were still wearing this 80 years ago. Watch. This was made out of horsehair, the tail of a horse. That was your mini shaitel that went on your hairline. This is silver, semi-precious stones. A piece here and a piece here so the lady could put up her hair in a bun. A tichel in the back. Where does a woman wear the toitafis? On the hairline. Where does the tefillin sharash go? On the hairline. What does a toitafis have? 1, 2, 3, 4. Four sections. What does the tefillin sharash have? 4 sections. Where does the tefillin of the tefillin go on the body of a person where the jewelry toitafis goes? So toitafis means tefillin, but it's in the context showing you of where a toitafis would actually be worn. I brought you whips. For those of you who learn Masechtas Makkos. And guys, this over here, please don't call me on Erev Yom Kippur to give you Malkus. My phone, every Erev Yom Kippur, is swamped Rabbi Deutsch, I'll give you $500. Give me malchus from a whip that would be required mizman bayesheni. Maybe if you have made a very big donation to the museum, I would give you malchus accordingly. So this over here is or shel chamor, interwoven with or shel egel. This is calfskin, and this is there. Now, the person getting malchus, let me show you exactly where they had to open his shirt. If you take these two fingers, 99% of people put on film don't know what Keneged Alev means, so let me show it to you. Take these two fingers. Your heart is not at the center. It's a little bit to the side, to the left side. This rib right here is called your chaimish. Take these two fingers, put it right here on the left side. This is where your heart is. When you're putting on tefillin, when you're making the bracha, you take your hand and make your fingers like this to be parallel with your chaimish. After you make the bracha, adjust the strap according to which part of the kibaris your minig is. But when you're making the bracha and you want it to be keneged alev mamish, it has to be like this. And in my books, I show you all the mitzias things. I have 7 books out right now. I have Breisha, Shmois, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Devar, Malachim, Aleph, Malachim, Beis, and I show you the mitzias of what you're learning. So here, if you put it, when you give malchus to a person, you have to open his shirt at shemegala es libo. It's still here. And the guy who's giving malchus has to be not a guy. I was a kid. I was learning Masechtas Makos. I raised my hand, Rebbe, how do I qualify to be the guy whipping people? And my Rebbe said, it's not that way. It's not the biggest, I'm going to go whip people. The guy has to be oisik b'tzarchit tzibur. He has to have a heart for another person. But the best way, if you're a Rebbe or Maggid Shir, to teach Masechtas Malchus is baseball. When a pitcher winds up, what is the pitcher doing? He's moving all of his strength to one side of his thing, and then he releases. The guy who's giving Malchus, when he goes up, 2 hands. When he releases, 1 hand. V'hu rachum yichaper, oven, v'loi yashchis, v'hir b'lahashiv apoy, v'loi yor kol chamosoi. The doctor has to check him 3 times. The doctor has to determine before he starts Malchus how many he could tolerate. But between each v'hu rachum, he does it again. Checks the guy. And this over here is, I'll leave them on the table so you can see what a real whip of Malchus would look like. I want to show you a coin. It's very interesting. If you remember last time I was here, I showed you, and I have it in this box, a machzis hashekel from the time of the second Beis Hamikdash. But the Romans melted down most of the Jewish machzis hashekels, and they made their own currency out of it. I've never brought this here before, so I'm going to show it to you tonight. The Gemara has a question in the Darim, if you are allowed to use silver today or not, because the Romans melted down the Jewish machzis hashekels and made from it their own coins. Hadrayanus Caesar, Hadrian, and Traiano Malka Trajan melted down the Jewish coins. They didn't have enough silver. And the Gemara says, Bikshu lignois kol kesev v'zav sheba'olam. They wanted to ask for people from using gold and silver, because so much came from the Beis Hamikdash. Ad shematzu pasig b'yecheskel, bo pritzim v'chalalua. They had a pasig cheskel that said anything the Romans took away from us has no din kedusha. That's why you're allowed to use silver and gold today. This is a coin exactly what the Gemara says from Trajan. It says on it Traianu, exactly as the Gemara tells us in Daf Nun. Traiana Malka. And this was made from the silver of the Beis Hamikdash. If somebody wants this coin, it's $850. It's a silver coin from the time of Trajan that, according to the Gemara in Daf Nun, tells us that this is made from the silver of the Beis Hamikdash. Now, Sukkot is coming, so this is a very important shir for those people who love shiurim. This coin is called an istara. Zuza mila'el ke'istera milasachas. If tzel meruba mechamasa, when light is coming into your sukkah, if I were to take a dinar, a dinar on zuz is the same coin. How much does light expand? 10 tfachim down. Zuza mila'el ke'istera milasachas. Ready for this? It's exactly Reb Chaim Nashir. Try it out. If you want an istera, it's $350. It is an actual coin that is negeya to your sukkah. If you want to understand shiurim, I made these things available. Rabbi Yasha bought every one of these things from me because he wanted to understand. I'm going to be Messiahing this Torah by showing you one last thing. If you've never seen a chalitza shoe, this is a chalitza shoe. The chalitza shoe has to be the size of the foot of the person. It has to have straps. And in my book on Bereshis, I give you a step-by-step guide how chalitza is performed. So for those of you who are learning the Indian of chalitza, this is an actual chalitza shoe that you can see that has been used.
You have to make a special one every chalitza.
Yes, because it has to fit the size of the person's foot. So I have 2 chalitza shoes. I have this one and I have one from the Bezdin of Amsterdam from 300 years ago. It's in my book on Bereshis. I teach you all about chalitza. I want to be Messiahing the Torah by telling you that if you want anything from our things, if you want a set of coins, they're $725. We take Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, Checks, Cash, or Zelle. If you'd like to have the books over there that I spoke about, Ha'arba b'Mesaris Yisrael, Targum Laz, or the controversy of Metzitza B'Keli, Metzitza B'Peh. On this side, I have sets of all the Choshen stones that I made with Rabbi Yisrael Belsky to show you. They cost $250. And me and Rebelsky took the Shilti Agibarim, who wrote down the Greek names of all of the stones of the Choshen, and we made low-quality ones, real ones that you can actually buy. I will tell you, I had a girl 2 years ago, 31 years old, who came to me and said, Rabbi Deutsch, I'm 31 and I'm still not married. I said, you want to get married this year? She said, yes. I said, Rabbeinu Bechaya writes, one of the schools is Nesinas Chain. What do you need for Shidduch? Nesinas Chain. Well, 2 months later, she got engaged. She calls me from her L'chaim. Rabbi Deutsch, 3 of my best friends on 31 all need Shidduchim. I said, let them buy the Avnei Choshen. They bought it, all 3 got engaged within a year. So I tell people now I'm going to solve the whole Shidduch crisis in Klal Yisrael. Anyone who in their family tells me someone needs a Shidduch, give them this as a gift. And maybe she should help. We should have a tremendous decrease in the number of girls who need Shidduchim. They should all get engaged. He says it's a skula for pregnancy, shalom bayis, parnasa, hatzlocha, noisachem b'nei anoshim, shidduchim, refuos. And my favorite school, he says, is if you suffer from fears and anxieties, pchadim, get all 12 together. And you're never going to have any more fears. So this costs cheaper than any psychologist appointment you may go to. And what Rabelsky said, you're allowed to use money for anything you buy because these are tools of education. And I made the shiurim tape measure. The guitars cost $100. It shows you, people daven every day. They say Parshas HaKtaras, they don't know what they're saying. They'll say Ktaras and Klaf, they still don't know what they're saying. These sets cost $100. You could open them up, learn the smells. Mira Belsky made a pamphlet showing you which plant family each one is from. And the Ben Ish Chai says, whoever keeps that in your house, I give you a guarantee, you will never have a fire in your house or a tragedy with children in your family. I just saved Korn's Bakery on 15th Avenue. Mrs. Berkowitz, you can call her up in Korn's Bakery, she'll tell you the story herself. She's in my museum with her granddaughter's trip. They all came, all her granddaughters under 12 years old, they came to the museum. And she said, you know, I have a guitarist in my house. Maybe I should get one for the bakery on 15th Avenue. I said, why not? She buys it for $100. She leaves the museum. We're on 16th Avenue. She walks to 15th Avenue, puts it down on her desk. And suddenly, The phone rings. One of the bakers calls her up that one of the ovens in Korn's Bakery is misfiring. Call the fire department. They call the fire department. They fix the oven in like a few minutes. And they continue baking while this is going on. The fire marshal tells Mrs. Berkowitz, the owner of Korn's Bakery, had you waited another 4 minutes, the entire block would have burnt down. And she calls me at 11 o'clock at night. Rabbi Deutsch, thank you for saving Korn's Bakery. I said, I didn't save it. Me and Rebelsky made that based on what Chazal say. So usually people buy the Ketaris from me twice. Either when they have a chance to buy it or the day after they have a fire. That's the 2 times people usually buy that. So if you want to have that, it's $100. The tape measures are $20. The shiurim buckets with the cost $100. All the books are $35 each. Thank you for inviting me. I want to wish each and every one of you a ksiva, chsima tova, l'shana tova, u'mesuka.
B'shem Irgun Shir Torah, Mr. Boss, I'd like to give a big yashakar to Rabbi Deutsch for the inspiring drasha. I'd like to give a big yashakar to Moshe Klein for sponsoring tonight's Shili Nishmas Imoy, Edel Basha Bavam Evel, La Shalom Yotzai tonight, Alpha Shridish El, Tenishmos Atzura B'tzara Chaim. I'd like to give a big yashakar to Mrs. Sarah Goldstein for sponsoring tonight's Shili Nishmas Rabbi Ruvain, Barab Moshe, Alva Shalom Tenishmos Atzura B'tzara Chaim. Ashkat everyone for coming to have the great excuse of supporting Irgun Shiri Torah, sponsoring one of their many shiurim, or take part in our annual dinner this Monday night. All men are invited to Young Israel Avenue K. Whoever can't come, you can have a chelik and abatzas Torah of Irgun Shiri Torah by calling 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Chananya ben Akashem, Rosakash Baruch Lezakis, is a Israel figure him Torah Mitzvah Shenem Alanoi Chofetz Eman Sidka Yagdol Torah V'Yader.